Welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast, where we serve and support leaders so you can serve and support your local church.
Welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Olson, and I am coming to you from my brand new studio space. I'm so excited. If you follow me on social media, you've probably seen some of the pictures I've been posting. We just have the most scenic view out the back of our house and out the back of my studio, and I'm so grateful. So I'm just looking out at the water and at the beautiful scenery, and I'm just really grateful. So I'm going to start this off with what we call going big. Begin in gratitude. And it's a really powerful way to start your day, to start your meetings, to start a dinner with your family. I've talked about that in the past, but my going big is just that we have been on such a long journey of building this house and working on this project as a family. And it's been long and it's been hard and it's been wonderful and fun and everything in between. And we are just so grateful to be here. So that is my going big. And I just challenge you right now, take a minute and think about what would mine be? What is mine? How can I begin this day? Or wherever you're at when you're listening to this, maybe you're closing out your day or heading into lunch or in the car or whatever. How can you begin or move forward with gratitude? So today's episode is a topic that I've actually been in conversation with people about a lot lately, and it's interesting how things come in waves. It's something that I am passionate about and I often will mention when I do workshops in local churches, but it's something that I've been also approached specifically about lately. And so I wanted to devote a podcast episode to this because it is so important. So if you are a worship leader or a pastor or some leader in a local church or ministry, and honestly, let's be real, anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a ministry, in your business, and whatever it looks like for you, whatever your context is. But coming out of the season that we've been in, kind of this post-COVID season, some of the things that I've been hearing often from people is, I feel like we're starting over, or I feel like we need to reunite as a team and kind of regain our relationship depth that we had prior to COVID because we were away for so long. And maybe they've been back together for quite a while now, but it's interesting because there's still that challenge of trying to bring everybody back together. There are some churches who, just began meeting together in person more recently in the last 4 or 5 months. And then there are some that have been meeting together, for a year. And either way, there are certain nuances and certain things that happen naturally when we're apart. And one of those things is we go into crisis mode when we have to, right? And so in this particular situation with the pandemic, we all had to pivot really quickly and go into crisis mode. But what happens in crisis mode is we let certain things go and let certain things slide that we normally wouldn't. So for example, if you had a worship team policy or expectation that, you have to be in church consistently, even if you're not on the worship team, even if you're not on the platform, if you serve on the worship team, we still need to see you on Sundays because that's, a part of being, in this community. Well, now all of a sudden, that's nearly impossible, right? Because they were meeting in homes or people aren't comfortable going out. And so, that's a really glaring one that is pretty obvious, but I use that just as an example. Or another one could be maybe your policy was to say, well, if you serve on the worship team, we need you to serve at least once a month. Well, when you're in crisis mode, it's like, well, we'll just take whatever, whenever, wherever, whoever, right? And so we have to let some of those things go, and none of that is bad. It's necessary. We have to pivot. But here's the thing. If you didn't have some sort of vision and policy in place prior to the pandemic, you probably felt the effects of this chaos and this uncontrollable season that we all walked through, you maybe felt the effects at an even more magnified level. If you did have a vision and policy in place beforehand, you probably still felt the chaos a little bit, but you had something tangible to lean on, and you actually had bits of policy to say, you know what, because of our crisis mode, this one does not apply, right? And so you had a little bit of framework, a little bit of structure to already work with. So that leads me into why is it important to have a vision? Why is it important to have a policy or a guideline or expectation list for your team? And that is the number one reason, because it gives you as a leader some structure to lean on. And so then it doesn't feel like you're shooting in the dark when it comes to holding people accountable, because we can't hold people accountable to something that they weren't aware that they signed on for. Right? So it's incredibly important. But I want to back up first of all to vision. Okay. So why would we have a vision statement and a mission statement for our church and our organization, our worship ministry? Well, if we don't point people towards a target, if we don't tell them where we are going, why would they follow us? And ultimately, obviously, they're not following us. We want to point them to Jesus because it's not about us. But why would they come along on this journey if they're not sure where we're going? So we definitely need to have a target. And so, I would imagine on your church's website, you probably have your whole organization mission statement. And if you don't, I encourage you to get it on that website. If you don't have one, then here's a great place to start, to begin praying through that and assessing what are the strengths of our ministry, what are the things that we are naturally passionate about, and then sit down as a leadership team and pray through those and figure out what is going to be our mission as a church. Like, what is our statement? What is the thing that defines who we are and what we do and why? So that is number one, kind of on a broader scale. I just want to address that. If you don't have one, I encourage you that it is of the utmost importance to get one. Now, at a more micro level, kind of moving down into something more specific, specifically for your worship team, it's also important to have a vision. And so to sit down as a worship leadership team, and maybe that's your pastors and you as the worship leader, whatever that looks like in your context, you fill in the blank there, but getting together and again, praying through what are the things that we are passionate about as a worship team that aligns with the mission of this church. And it's important because, again, with your worship team, we need to have a goal and a target to point them towards. So, for example, maybe your worship team vision starts something like talking about what are your goals as a team to maybe, for example, create an atmosphere of worship that points directly to God, no matter what the circumstance. So now we're talking specifics of, we're not going to try to, have this formula of, well, we do always a fast song and there's always 10 people on stage and we always kick it off with a up tempo. And, those are good frameworks to have. But if we put that as our goal, those specific things like this many people on the stage, this specific type of song and speed and sound and etc., if that is the main thing, well, what happens when you hit a crisis like a pandemic and you can't have that many people on stage? So to really think on a broad scope, like what is the macro goal? Okay, so creating an atmosphere of worship that points directly to God, no matter the circumstance, no matter the size of team, the makeup, the how many instruments, etc. Maybe another goal is you want to mentor and build new members and leaders through training. And so one of the missions and hearts behind your ministry is raising up new leaders. Okay. And so these kinds of things are all just ideas to help get your brain rolling, but it's so important for you as a team to have a vision statement and to have a goal that you're pointing your team towards, because then anytime you're in discussion, you can point back to this. Everybody, we've communicated this. This is who we are, and we want to have you along on this journey, and we want to have you come alongside of this vision. Right? So that's what we're looking for in our team members then. We're looking for people who want to come alongside of this vision, who are passionate about coming alongside of this vision. And so now it's no longer about like, well, I like to sing. I like to play. I like to play drums. I like to play keys. I like to run sound. Well, that's great. We love that. But that's not what we're about. First and foremost, we are about finding people who want to come alongside of this vision. And so now the conversation is totally different. That is your filter for starting conversations. So that's at a macro kind of broader level. And then moving it down into something more specific. In a minute, we'll talk about specific expectations or policies and why that's important. But I hope that as you're listening through this, that you just begin to process through and think, okay, yeah, what are some of the things that are unique to our church? What are some of the things that are unique to our team? You know, maybe it has to do with bringing cultures together or bringing generations together. Or maybe for you, it's blending contemporary and traditional and being a bridge for that gap. Sometimes it is a gap and it can become a source of division or like a chasm. And so maybe that's the heart of your church, or the heart of your church is evangelism. And so, you know, your worship and the way that you craft the vision for your worship team is going to fall under that heading. And so you can see how one affects the other. It's kind of a domino effect. And so you really need to start. If you don't have something for the entire church, then that's something to chat with your pastors about and get together as a team and work on that, and then bring it down to you as a worship ministry leader. And then for you as the leader, coming to your team members and saying, this is who we are and this is the target I want to point us towards. So for those of you who are listening, who are on the worship team, you're not a leader, but you are a servant, then your goal and your job is to come alongside of and support that vision. When it is something that the leadership has prayed through and they have just gone into the presence of God and asked the Lord to give wisdom and guidance, and they have come to this, you know, beautiful agreement of this is our statement, this is our target. Well, then your job and your goal should be to come alongside of and serve that.
Did you know that we also have a conference? The Overflow Worship Conference is on October 8th and 9th, 2021 in Wilmer, Minnesota. Our goal is to serve and support the entire worship team. This year, we'll be joined by pastor and author Clay Scroggins, worship leader and writer of Peace Be Still, Hope Dust, Overflow worship founder Andrea Olson, and more. Our goal is to give you and your whole team a break, a moment to pause and be refreshed. You can learn more at www.overflowworship.com.
You know, a lot of times just in life in general, but specific to church ministry, especially in worship, we get our gifts and our talents kind of mixed up in there in the way. And so I just encourage you for the moment to set that aside and to take a look at the vision statement of your team, whether it's brand new or whether it's old and you know it and you can recite it. To let that be your number one goal, to come alongside of that. And now I have to state it. Let's just assume that overarching, it is unspoken here in this conversation that our ultimate goal is to be a catalyst for pointing people to Jesus, right? We never want to distract from that or take away from that. And so we as leaders are leading people into the presence of God. And that is an honor greater than any other piece of this conversation. It is number one, that. And so that, of course, is our focus, and your vision needs to align with that focus. But we want to, after we, put our hearts in check and surrender and say, okay, yep, God, this is all for you. I just want to do what you want me to do and serve where you want me to serve. Then as ministry servants, then coming alongside and saying, hey, this vision, I want to come alongside of this and I want to serve this. So that is just something that I've been chatting with people a lot about lately, and I wanted to devote a podcast episode, like I said, to this. So that is vision. All right. So keep that in mind. Think about it, pray about it. And then the next thing is specific expectations for your worship team members. Now, the challenge with this is, we don't want to come with this laundry list of don't do this and don't do that, and we expect you to do this, because that's not what this is at all. Again, it is giving you as leaders something tangible, something structural to lean on. So all of a sudden, when you're having a conversation with a potential new member, you can point to them and say, hey, this is who we are, and this is what we do, and this is why we do it. And again, we are wanting to invite people onto this team who want to align with these things. And so again, the conversation shifts first away from the talent and the gift and on the heart. And people whose hearts are just willing servants, they're gonna want to come alongside of the vision of a church that they believe in and are passionate about. Because chances are, if they're asking to be on the worship team, they believe in the ministry of the church. And if they're a newcomer and maybe it's their first Sunday, I would suggest that maybe they attend for a little while before they hop up on the platform. And if they're asking their first Sunday, you might want to ask them to wait just a little bit. But again, the policy thing or the expectations list is not meant to deter people. It's just a conversation piece, and it is something that gives you framework. So it's really important to set these expectations in place, because then when you're having conversations, even with experienced long-term members saying, hey, this is who we are, and this is the expectations and policies that we want to align with. And so if there's ever something that's out of alignment, it gives you just that structure and that backbone to kind of come back to and say, here, this is who we are, and this is what we do and why. And, we see that we aren't in alignment on this. How can we help you? How can we come alongside of you? So it's never meant, in my mind, to be a set of rules that pushes people away, but something that really holds us accountable and serves as a guide for the leaders and the team members. And so you can get as specific as you want, but I challenge you to make sure that it's not too long, not too detailed and nitty gritty, but also enough where it's understandable and there's clarity. And, it's going to be different for every single team and every single church, because you have different, concerns, and you have different contexts and different groups of people and ages and all of that. And so maybe you don't need to say anything about a outward appearance and clothing expectation, because there's never been an issue with that. That being said, though, it's probably good to have something in there. You don't need to, some people do colors, please wear these colors, etc. So that's great. Or maybe it's just a modesty thing, because you have young people on your team and you want to make sure that everything is done with modesty and care when it comes to clothing. And so really consider your people as well, and your vision, right? And what you're wanting to accomplish. And I really truly believe that our goal as worship leaders and team members is not to be a focal point, right? We don't want to pursue excellence and pursue greatness because we want people to look at us. We want to do it so they're not distracted by us. So what does that mean for your policy? What does that mean as you're laying these things out? Okay, how are we not a distraction, but how are we pursuing excellence? And so, musically, spiritually, all of those things. So really taking those things into consideration. So those are a couple of thoughts that I have regarding worship team vision and policy, and just the incredible importance that I place on that. And I encourage you to really take some time and think about these things, because it will drastically shift the culture, it maybe isn't the right word, but it will drastically shift things in your team towards the positive. And I encourage you, though, to remember that it is a long play. This is not something that you want to just jump in and type out some weekend and show everybody the next Sunday and say, this is it. This is, everything is changing. That would be a miss, because you will probably have some people maybe that don't understand, or it might be just a difficult thing. So one thing at a time, one step at a time. Start with your vision. Start with that statement. Start with, this is who we are and this is what we do and why. And then sit on that for a little while. And then you could start to implement things one by one. And then eventually maybe you will have a document that everybody agrees to. It's an expectations list and they sign, or you could do that if you wanted to or not. It's really up to every specific context. I encourage you not to get too terribly legalistic about it. Use it as a guideline, though, to really help hold people accountable and to invest in the ministry. All of this is meant to come alongside of the vision of the church and ultimately our number one goal of pointing people to Jesus and leading them into his presence. So, one of the things that I'm really, really excited about, and you've heard about it a bit on the podcast, but I'm going to talk about it here as I close, is the launch of overflowresource.com. And I cannot even express to you how excited I am about this, because it's something that's been on my heart for about 8 years. And it's been pretty cool to see how God has shifted it and changed it and morphed it in my heart and in my mind. And it's finally here. It's finally a living, breathing website, and it's just been so fun to put together. And this website is meant for the local church. Our tagline for Overflow Resource is serving the local church worship team. That's just who we are. It's what we do. And we really catered all of the resources on this website to be specific to the church that is made up of, about 95% of churches in America that serve congregations of 500 or less. And so everything is curated with that in mind. And that doesn't mean that you won't glean anything if your church is 1,000 people or 2,000 people or 50 people. But we really have noticed, and I've noticed in all of the sessions and workshops that I teach around the country, that really It's a very obvious thing that, 95% of these churches are 500 or less, and they face different challenges than a church of 10,000. Are they better challenges? Are they worse challenges? Are they harder? No, but they're just different. And so we really focused in on those challenges and the needs that I was hearing from people. I get to be in all of these different churches and hear what God is doing and see what God is doing and see their pain points and their challenges. And so this website and these resources and training tools are curated for you. Like, I heard your stories and I've implemented them here in this website, because that's just the heart that God has given me for the local church. And so what you'll find at overflowresource.com is an option to subscribe. So there's 2 tiers of subscription, monthly price every month. There's a basic and a premium. And in the basic, you get all of the introductory level content, and you get access to, our song resources and just some really great resources within the site. And it's just such a great kind of starter spot for anybody who's just interested in checking it out. Once you jump up to the premium membership, it unlocks everything in the entire site, and it also unlocks some really unique training tools and one-on-one opportunities with me. And so with your premium membership, you'll get to meet with me 2 times in a year for an hour and just have consulting based on your specific needs in your church. We also have monthly set list support, so bounce around ideas about set lists and transitions and whatever kind of your need is that month. We have that option as well, and that's on Zoom. We also have monthly community meetings on Zoom through the premium membership, just opportunities to get together and pray and bounce ideas around, and so much more. And the thing is where it's at now is not where it's going to stay. When you join, you get to be along for the growth. So there's stuff that's added every single month, and the first Friday of every month is when we dump more training and tutorials and articles and resources into the site. And so you get that as a premium member every month. And as a basic member, you will get access to stuff every month as well as that grows too. And so I just want to invite you to be along on this journey and in this community, and subscribe at overflowresource.com. It's something that is part of what I feel my calling is to be a bridge for people in church ministry. And so this is one of the ways that I feel God has called me to do that, is to create this resource for you. And so we have song resources like click tracks and multi-tracks and chord charts, and there's tutorial videos that are specific to songs and also specific to topics. There are articles about various topics that you can imagine regarding to church ministry leadership and worship leading. And there are videos, and we also have Overflow Worship Conference breakout sessions in the vault as well, which we've never released those before. So if you missed a conference and you were bummed, there's some sessions in there you can listen to, and just a lot more. So I say that because I'm also really excited to soon be launching a new session in the vault for this specific topic of worship team vision and policy. And so there's going to be a downloadable guide and also a template for you to download and use as a guide as you're starting this vision casting and policy creation process. And so I just encourage you to hop on and check that out as well, because that will be coming on the last Friday of July. No, excuse me, the first Friday of August. We release content the first Friday of every month. I forgot what month it was right now. I don't know why I said last Friday. Anyways, it's coming the first Friday of August. So you won't want to miss that. It's going to be much more, I'll just be elaborating a lot more in that session on the specific details, and there will be an audio podcast, not this one, but another one that talks more specifics about this process and how to implement it within your church, and then all the downloadable guides as well. So anyways, that is overflowresource.com, and I'm just so excited about it. So I hope you'll join us over there whenever you can. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me today. As always, you know where to find me. You can find me on all socials at Andrea Olson Music, and you can find Overflow Resource on socials at Overflow Resource. And, if you have anything, prayer requests, or needs at all, just reach out to us, info@overflowworship.com.
You've been listening to the Overflow Worship Podcast. If you enjoy our podcast, please take a moment and leave us a 5-star rating and a written review, which helps us reach more people. New episodes are released every other Monday. So until next time, thank you for listening.